Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Tittle Tattle Tarot. It's Georgie. And today, who likes a riddle? This is a bit of a riddle, this one. I've been asked to look at the princes in the tower. Were they killed? Were they murdered? Who murdered them? And we're going all the way back to 1483. In 1483, the King of England, who was Edward IV, he died. And he left behind two little boys. His sons, the one that was due to inherit the throne was Edward, and he was 12. And then his slightly younger brother was Richard. And so he's got these two little boys, one due to inherit the throne after his death. So Edward IV passes in 1483. And Edward had appointed his brother, another Richard, to be these boys' guardian, to look after them. And he entrusted their health, their welfare, and everything in his brother, Richard. And Richard takes the eldest boy, Edward, down to London to get ready to be crowned, to do the coronation. And he was too young to be a full king, but, he would have been a king, and then somebody else would have, guided him, which probably would have been Richard, his uncle Richard. So anyway, they go down to London and they prepare, for the coronation, or supposedly to prepare for the coronation. And this little boy, Edward, 12 years old, he goes into the Tower of London. Now, before I go any further, the Tower of London was not the way you imagine it from years later. The Tower of London was beautiful apartments that royalty stayed in. So quite often when you hear of the princes in the tower, you think of the Tower of London, you think of them in some kind of dungeon. And that really wasn't the case. The Tower of London were very luxurious sort of apartments. And these little boys, he was joined by his younger brother, Richard, another Richard, at a slightly later date. And, these boys were wonderfully cared for. And they were out playing, and it was great for them. They got time to spend together because they hadn't really grown up together. So they got time to be together, and it was a very close time for them. And so it was a happy time in the Tower of London. I know that sounds strange, but the Tower of London is not what you're thinking of. Back then, it wasn't like that. Now, it's said that the boys were murdered. That basically nobody wanted them to inherit the throne. There were all talk of, well, they couldn't because they were both illegitimate. The heir to the throne, young Edward, age 12, he was actually illegitimate. So, Edward IV's marriage to his wife was not kosher. It wasn't correct. And this boy, both boys were illegitimate. Loads of things going around as to why this boy couldn't become king. The boys didn't know any of this. They were just happily, ensconced in the castle. There's all this fighting going on about, these boys, this boy cannot inherit the throne. And basically the throne goes to their uncle. So Uncle Richard, who became Richard III. Now, the story goes that Richard III had them murdered because, obviously they're there, they're a threat to his throne. Some people will say that it was King Richard III that did it. He's usually the villain in history. Other people will say that it was Henry VII, Henry VIII's father. So Henry VII wanted the throne, and these boys were, in the way. So Henry VII sort of had them done away with. So whether it was Richard III or whether it was Henry VII, nobody knows, but that is a theory. You've got these two men. I'm sure that these two men, if they were involved, they didn't get their hands dirty. They had people working for them to do this dirty deed. But I'm going to look at this from another aspect. I'm going to look at this from the idea that these boys did not meet any fate, did not die, that they were spared and they lived. Now, what makes me say that? What makes me say that is this picture. Now, as an art lover, I'm not an art historian by any means, and I don't really know a great deal about art history, but this painting here, this is of Sir Thomas More here in the middle, surrounded by his family. And it was painted by a very famous court painter called Hans Holbein in 1540. So it's painted about 50 years after the death of the original King Edward IV. It was painted about 50 years after that. And, you know, so time has gone on, but it's in a little time warp of that period, that sort of period. So why is this picture telling me that these princes could possibly be alive? Well, everyone in this picture can be accounted for, different relatives, sisters, you know, cousins, what have you, of Sir Thomas More. They're all accounted for, except for two figures. Now, I've got two versions of this. I've got the computer version and a paper version. I'm going to see which shows up best. We've got a figure here, a young boy here, standing here, and then we've got another boy reading by the window. So let me see if it shows up better on my paper copy of it. This boy here, carrying a scroll with a sword by his side, and then a younger boy here, seated at the window. Now, who are these two? Now, it could just be a coincidence. They could just be two random people. But I will tell you, Holbein painted many, many paintings, and they all had symbols and clues in them. Nothing is ever just there. It's never just, oh, well, I've got a bit of space here, I'll fill it in with a dog, you know, I've got a bit of space, I'll stick that in. Everything is highly thought about and conveys a message with all of Holbein's paintings. So now we've got two figures unaccounted for in supposedly a family portrait. Other strange things, I'm only going to mention a few of them. This doggy down here, when they did x-rays of this painting, this dog had a muzzle on, and the muzzle was a pig's snout as a muzzle, which is a very strange kind of muzzle to have on a dog, a pig's muzzle. Now, if you take away the tail, that could be a pig. So, you know, what you associate pigs with, I don't know, but it's a very strange symbol. You know, there's this pig-like dog with what once had a pig snout on it. So we've got a very unusual figure here in this pig dog. Here in the corner, I don't think you can see it very well in this photocopy, but we've got a monkey. And the monkey symbolizes you're in the presence of royalty. So you can just about see these little eyes here. I'm sorry I haven't got a better copy of this, and I don't think it shows up any better in my computerized version of it. The monkey is here. I don't know whether you can just see it in the corner, that sort of shadowy figure of a monkey. The monkey, you are in the presence of royalty. That is what the monkey symbolizes. And then the young boy that I pointed out first of all with the scroll, this unidentified boy, he stands next to fleur-de-lis, and the fleur-de-lis are royalty flowers. Okay, so we've got the flowers next to him, and we've got the other younger boy reading in the background. The dresser behind these three figures here is covered with a carpet over the dresser, a highly patterned, very plush carpet. And this was done apparently in cases where there are secrets and things to be hidden. And this was a symbol in painting that things are not as they seem, a symbol of hiding things under the carpet, sweeping it under the carpet. This is sort of where that kind of symbolism comes from, sweeping it under the carpet, this very rich pattern carpet over a dresser hiding something. The clock only has one hand. and the clock is open, the clock case is open. Now, I don't know all of the meanings of these things, but it's very, very strange, because Holbein would not have painted these things without trying to get a message across that was very cryptic, like I say, a riddle. And what is this riddle all about? Well, art historians believe that it's about these two boys. Not Holbein, sorry, Thomas More's sisters here. They've like sort of swapped in a way. The sort of sleeves of this one's dress are taken from this one's bodice, and the sleeves of this one's bodice are taken from this one's dress. So it's like swapping, people. So were these boys swapped? What happened? What happened? I don't know. I've got no idea. I'm just a tarot reader, but this painting fascinates me. All the different symbols in it. And if you look it up, it's called Sir Thomas More and His Family, painted by Hans Holbein, and it was painted in 1540. If you want to look it up and find out all the symbolism, above their heads you've got different names, who these people are. Well, above this teenage boy here, this figure, it's all in Latin, but it basically translates to secretary and rightful heir. So this older boy, who would be the age of you know, the Prince of Wales, the person that would have inherited the throne, rightful heir. So I want to get from the tarot cards, is it possible that these boys did survive? There are a lot of people that see this picture and see it as evidence that these boys did not meet some terrible fate, that, you know, they were in some way sprung out of their situation, out of their captivity. And Tower of London, although the Tower of London was beautiful, it wasn't a dungeon or anything like that. They were sprung out of there and went on to live hidden in society, which would imply that Sir Thomas More knew about this. So we shall see. I'm going to pull a Celtic Cross and just look at the possibility, see what the cards say about this. Is it at all feasible that these boys weren't? There were talks about them being drowned, drowned in wine, no less, being suffocated, being stabbed, you know, all kinds of things that, you know, the way they met their end. But, you know, we haven't got proof of anything. And I will come back to that proof of death later on after the reading. But let's just have a look at a Celtic Cross and just see, just from the gods, from the angels, did these boys meet their death? A Celtic Cross, please, regarding the princes in the tower. Okay, so let's go right to the heart of the matter here. So the heart of the situation, we have the Three of Pentacles. That's energies working together. So this is three people working together. So I see this as possibly the people that sprung these boys from the Tower of London. Now, I'm sure that one of these people would have been their mother, Elizabeth Woodville. I'm sure that one of them would have been their mother. Who the other two were, I don't know. Could one of them be Sir Thomas More? Could he have been behind it in some way? The fact that the boys are in his home, well, you know, that sort of says it all. He must have known. If they are standing in his home with his family, then surely his energy must have been, I'm not saying that he did it, but he must have known about this plot to free them. So who the third is, I don't know, but it's that energy of working together. So that's interesting. That is your central energy, a team of small people working together. And then crossing that, we have the Two of Pentacles. And yeah, I mean, I can imagine what a juggling act that would have been, trying to get these boys out. That would have been no easy feat, would it? Very much. I mean, look, we've got boats here. We've got this sort of knight-like figure just trying to work out when to do it, how to do it. You know, it must have been an incredibly difficult task to do this. And it caused a lot of trouble how they were going to spring them out. And in the top of this, we've got the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is that bullying, that fighting energy, will win at any cost. Now, there were people that wanted these boys dead, wanted them out of the way. They were saying that they were illegitimate. Parliament had said they were illegitimate. They wanted these boys out of the way, wanted them to be disposed of. So this is always in the top of the mind. We need to protect these boys, these central figures here. We need to protect these boys because there are figures there that will get them at any cost. This is winning, getting, hurting at any cost. So that's in the mind of the people that are rescuing them. And at the bottom of it all, Six of Wands. But they were victorious. The Six of Wands is someone riding into town. Now, of course, this would be a very hush-hush thing. You wouldn't have crowds of people cheering because they'd need to keep these boys extremely secret where they were. They'd need to keep it very quiet. So, but this is a success. This is like your laurel wreath on top of your wand. You've done it. You've done it. So the spring out from, you know, from the Tower of London, getting them sprung out, it was successful. And it was judgment. It was the way things should have been. These little boys did not deserve to die. They did not deserve to meet their demise. They didn't deserve to be called illegitimate. So this was the right and just thing to do. Archangel Gabriel was happy with that. And that was the exact right thing because these boys were innocent. They did not deserve to be done away with by adults who had such terrible, terrible motives. So that was the judgment. But we've got the Five of Wands here. In the near future to that, once they'd sprung, there was all hell to sort of deal with. They had to hide them. They had to hide them. And, you know, things were said that, yes, they'd been murdered. Yes, they'd been done away with. Now, to me, this seems like some kind of story had to come together. Something had to be done. Now, I don't know about this picture here. Do you remember I said about this swapping here? You've got the sleeves of this dress and the bodice of that one, and the sleeves of that one are the bodice of this one. It's a very unusual fashion thing in those days. This didn't happen, this sort of swapping. Is that some kind of code that these boys were swapped with other bodies to make it look? I don't know, but I'm looking at this swapping and I'm looking at this energy here, which was conflict and trying to sort this out. Wands energy, it's not like the swords energy. That is serious. That is murder. This is aggravation. This is a difficult situation. It's still battling, but it's not like this murderous sort of card, this evil energy. It's more sort of awkward, difficult, very hard to do, but it gets done. It gets done. So this is the very central energy around these two boys and the situation. And then we come up the outside, so more sort of on the outside looking in. Five of Cups. We've got focusing on what's happened, the spilt cups, the emotion of everything. Now, I don't know whose energy this is. I don't know whether this is Richard III's energy. Now, he is painted as the villain, always the villain. In Shakespeare, he was the hunchback, and you know, he's always painted as this vile king. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know whether it is. This cup's emotion, looking at the bad side of things, whatever happened, he didn't get his hands dirty in any way. Was he told that these boys had been murdered? Was he told that? I don't know, but maybe from this card, maybe Richard III was told, oh, sir, you know, your nephews have been murdered, they've been suffocated, and maybe he never saw the bodies, and maybe he is like thinking that they've been disposed of. Maybe, I don't know, but that is a possible feeling from this, and I'm just looking at a very, very different picture here. Queen of Pentacles, I see this as the boy's mother's energy, the Queen of Pentacles. Elizabeth Woodville, she was a very down-to-earth woman. I think that she was a very kind woman. She wasn't over emotional, and she wasn't like a Queen of Swords that's all sort of battling and, you know, harsh words or anything like that. She was a very practical, very, very lovingly practical woman. And she had a relationship, not a relationship in that way, but she still had a fairly decent relationship with King Richard III. Now, if King Richard III had killed her boys, if she knew that he had killed her boys, I can't imagine her being on speaking terms with him, and they were. I'm not saying they were the best buddies in the world, but they were on communication terms. You know, they were talking. Now, would this woman, if he had really murdered her boys, would she really have anything to do with him? I kind of think not. But there you go. This is this woman. She knew what had happened here. She knew that her boys had been sprung. I don't know whether he did know. I think that maybe he went to his grave thinking that they had been done away with, and he was their protector, you know, and he stood back and did nothing. I think that's probably his grief over his lack of you know, lack of doing something, because I'm pretty sure that from this picture here there was some kind of swap going on. The boys have been dealt with, but they were different bodies. It was some kind of cover-up. So let's just have a look here what the universe said. The Three of Cups in reverse. Now, we've got heartache here. You know, just a few years later, King Richard, he was disposed of, wasn't he? So he met his death a few years later. There is talk that this oldest boy here, who was the heir to the throne, that he actually died not that long after this. And it kind of makes sense that that could happen, because when these boys were in the Tower of London, the eldest boy constantly had a doctor out to him for various ailments, was always having the doctor out to him. So the fact that he was, you know, frail in body, in those days, it's not a surprise to think that this Three of Cups here is grief over a loss. So I'm wondering whether this eldest boy did actually, Edward, the 12-year-old boy, when he got a few years older, that he did actually pass. And then you'd have the grief of his brother, his mother, and the people that had, you know, hidden him. So then we'd be down to just the one boy. We'd be down to this boy reading at the window. And if there is that boy looking through the window and reading in the background, the second son, this could well be the Three of Wands, you know, him looking out to his future. His royal past is behind him. He looks out to the boat. He looks out to the future. What's in store for him? What's in store for this remaining boy? What happened to him? I don't know. This is all just supposition. This is all a wonderful riddle, just brought about by this painting, this hundreds and hundreds of years old, this painting, but with all these strange riddles and clues in it. And as I say, Holbein didn't paint anything by accident or just, oh, well, I'll put that pig dog in there. Never. They were always little clues to things. So I'm going to go right to the center of the pack and just see if I can just pick up a final piece of energy on what could have happened. Just get right in there. I want to go there. That's where I want to go. Death. King of Pentacles. You know what? I'm going to say, because we were talking, the last things that we were talking about were the death of the heir to the throne while he was still, you know, even just still in his teens, maybe only just out of his teens. He was 12 when his father died, and I'm sort of thinking maybe about 18 when he passed. I don't know. That's just the feeling I'm getting from the cards. I really don't know. I don't know if any of this is true, but this is just what the cards are telling me. The death of who would have been the heir to the throne. And then the King of Pentacles, this one here. This one, I believe, goes on to establish himself and make his wealth. I'm not saying that he, I don't know what he would have done, and I don't know that the cards could tell me this, but he managed to conceal his identity with the help of very, very high up people who kept his secret with them, and he managed to conceal his identity. Let's go right to the very bottom and see what we have. 10 of Pentacles. 10 of Pentacles. And that is, you know, that is your life success, your monetary success, your, you know, stability, your foundation, just everything, you know, what makes a house a home with all the possessions that you need. The death of the oldest son, and this young boy, this young Richard, went on and lived in hiding or changed identity, as in this, changing identity, believed to be dead, the changing, the pig snout, it knows, it sniffed it out, it knows what's gone on, things hidden underneath this very elaborate carpet over this dresser. The hands of time, you've got one hand on the clock. Why only one hand on the clock? That's done for a reason. Why not two hands on the clock? And so many other clues in this. You must, if you're interested at all, please look it up. This writing above the head saying that this is the rightful heir, the secretary, the rightful heir. What on earth? With the flowers for royalty and the monkey, you're in the presence of royalty. So I don't know, but I am fascinated by this, and I'm going to look more into this painting and find out more of these symbols. And I will just leave you with this little riddle and see what you think. It is fascinating, whether it's true or not. I have no idea, but I love your comments and I'd love to know what you think of all this. And until next time, I hope you've been entertained by that. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.